The Pittsburgh Steelers didn't need any bulletin board material coming into the week. There are still plenty of questions about this offense that should drive them to try and compete for excellence. And I mean, George Pickens is George Pickens. And that's a superstar, whether you add to it or not. And the Jacksonville Jaguars decided, yeah, might as well just give him a little extra juice this week, right before game time. What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackbein. Thank you for jumping on to Steelers to Go, your daily to-go cup of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/allsteelerstalk and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they face the Jacksonville Jaguars this weekend, week 8, a tough matchup. Two of the AFC's top teams right now, two teams that if the season ended right now would be in the postseason, would likely meet in the postseason. And the Jacksonville Jaguars, I mean, they're no slums. They are guys that have competed well and beat promising teams, and both offense and defensively, they've come out on top in pretty big matchups. This is not a team to overlook. This is not a team to ignore. This is not a team to expect an easy win from. And I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers viewed them as such. I don't think anybody in that locker room looked at the Jacksonville Jaguars and said, hey, these guys stink. These guys are not a challenge. These guys are not going to raise any risk for us. We might as well just coast by, practice hard, and come game day, come Sunday, it'll be a breeze. We'll smoke these guys. Atwater Stadium, you'll have a good Sunday. I don't think anybody in Pittsburgh was saying that. I think it was the opposite. They acknowledged how good this team was. They acknowledged how good guys like Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne were, and anybody else on either side of the ball who has made plays. I think everybody in Pittsburgh, everybody in that locker room was ready for a hard-nosed matchup. There was no need to add to it. There was no need to challenge anybody. There was no need for bulletin board material. But the Jacksonville Jaguars said, hey, look who cares if George Pickens is coming off back-to-back 100-yard games? Who cares if he's had 3 this season? Who cares if he averages 18.5 yards per catch, already has 500 yards, has 2 touchdowns? Who cares if Deontay Johnson's back? And that means that George Pickens is that much more deadly because you cannot double team him at all times. And if you do, well, Deontay is going to have himself a day. Who cares? Nah, nobody in Jacksonville. That's who. Because safety Rashawn Jenkins made sure that he was going to acknowledge George Pickens. He was going to say, yeah, he can go deep. He could catch a pass and gain some yards. But he hasn't played us. This is what he said the other day, quote, I think our cornerbacks do a great job with any matchup. I know the receiver we have coming in, number 14, has a high yards per catch. But respectfully, he hasn't played our corners yet. That's what I'll say on that. With a big smile. And immediately you go, yeah, respectfully, you didn't mean any respect by that comment. Respectfully, you were challenging George Pickens and you were saying, our corners will shut him down. It's no issue. It is what it is. Now, George came back. I don't even think he was asked about the comment. I think he was just asked about the Jaguars corners. And I was there, and it didn't seem like there was tension. Didn't seem like he was trying to call somebody out. I don't even know if he knew what Jenkins had to say at the time of this coming out. But what he said was, quote, I think their D-line, they depend on their D-line a lot. With their team having a lot of first-round guys on that D-line, that's what they depend on a lot. I kind of hope, they kind of hope the guys hold up long enough. So it's kind of a hope defense for sure. A hope defense. A cornerback room that should be able to shut down George Pickens. I'll say this. George is a guy that we talked 2 days ago. We came on the podcast on Monday. There were stories about it all week long and all weekend long, and Ben Roethlisberger addressed it. Mike Tomlin addressed it. Everybody's talking about it. The unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, the costly penalties and big moments by George Pickens just because once in a while he gets hot and he can't cool himself down quick enough to not cause a problem, not cause a flag, to not force a referee's hand. You're going to tell me that that's the guy that you're going to talk smack on before this game? You're going to tell me that George Pickens is the guy that's coming off 130 and 101 yard games, or 130, 107 yard games back to back against two pretty good defenses? You're going to tell me that that's the guy that you're going to add bulletin board material to this late in the week? Just doesn't seem like a smart idea. And I get it. People are going to talk, oh, Deontay Johnson possibly suffered a setback with his hamstring injury, and there are concerns now. It doesn't matter. You could only put George Pickens out there and you could double team him. I'm telling you, I've been around this guy long enough now. It's only been 2 years, but I feel like 2 years is plenty of time to get to know somebody and who they are as a player and what drives them. And I think this is classic. You are talking smack to the wrong human being type of situation. You are a safety that, I get it. Jenkins is a guy that has started a long time in the NFL. Kind of. He's had his moments. He's come up with interceptions. I mean, last year he had 116 tackles and 3 picks and a sack, which is pretty good for a safety. But he's never been a superstar. He's never been the guy that the defenses are tossing jerseys on, or the opposing teams are wearing jerseys throughout the week to defend. He was never the guy that you have to shut Jenkins down. You have to force his hand to leave the presence of the defense in order for you to succeed. Until he said this, I bet you 90% of Pittsburgh Steelers fans had no idea who he was. And I bet you going into the game, the other 10% that hasn't been on the internet this week will have no idea who he is on game time. That's just who he is. And I'm not trying to bag on anybody. I'm not trying to say that he's not a good player. He's made his way to the NFL and he started for the last 5-6 years. That's a hell of a journey. That is a guy that deserves respect. And again, I don't think that he tossed it out there and said, hey, you know what, George, come on at me because things are going to get dangerous and I trust me before I trust you. I think he was just speaking. I think he was trying to maybe liven up his cornerback room and give them a little extra juice. What it did was it added some serious bulletin board material to George Pickens' resume. It said, hey, slap this one up here until Monday morning because they're talking smack and they don't believe that you could do what you've been doing against names like Marlon Humphrey and Ahkello Witherspoon. They don't care. You can't do that against corners that people don't even know. And a safety that is 29 years old and has never made a Pro Bowl. But you can't do that, not against them. You see where I'm getting at? You see how sometimes you just don't talk. Sometimes you say things, and I don't think, again, that he meant to drive George Pickens a little extra this week. But he did. It's going to come back to bite him in the butt. It's not going to work out well for the Jacksonville Jaguars defense. If you're a gambling man, I mean, I don't know what George Pickens over is going to be. I'm going to take it, and I'd feel pretty good about taking it if I was you. Just feel like this is a game where George is a guy that he already talks a lot of smack in games. He already gets himself in trouble because he talks too much during games. He's already hot. He's a guy, I remember watching Bill Burr a couple of years ago, and he made a joke. He said, you know, I reached 100%. I hit 100 miles an hour. I get it, but I came in here 75. I feel like George comes into places 75. He's already going. His body, his mind, he's already ramped up. He's already ready to go to war. Maybe this week he walks in 85. Why? Because Rashawn Jenkins just said, hey, I'm going to just toss this out here and we'll hope that you don't hear it. I bet you heard it.